From crazy game references, to terrifying scrapped enemies, all the way to insane gameplay glitches, here are 25 things you missed in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Number 1. Most players save their game dozens of times throughout a single playthrough, but very few notice that on the bottom corner of the typewriter, the Umbrella logo is printed. So the same company responsible for unleashing the T-Virus across Raccoon City also manufactured the very tools we rely on for survival. Number 2. In the reveal trailer for this game, there's a blink and you'll miss a cameo from a PlayStation console, which acts as a nostalgic tribute to the platform where Resident Evil 2 first launched back in 1998. For longtime fans, this subtle nod is Capcom's way of acknowledging the roots of the franchise, honoring the era that introduced millions of players to Raccoon City. Number 3. Ada Wong's trench coat in the remake wasn't just a fashion choice. It was lifted from concept art for Resident Evil 1.5, the cancelled prototype of Resident Evil 2. In that version, Ada's look leaned more towards a mysterious spy, rather than the red dress identity she would later adopt. By reviving the trench coat design for the remake, Capcom paid homage to the lost game that never saw the light of day. Number 4. In early stages of development, Capcom briefly considered implementing a 2-player co-op mode for the game. The idea was to let Leon and Claire fight side by side, combining their resources and strategies in real time. However, the development team quickly realized that Resident Evil had always thrived on isolation, the dread of being alone in the dark with limited resources and no one to rely on but yourself. Sharing that experience with another player risked undermining the very essence of survival horror. For that reason, the co-op idea was abandoned almost quickly as it was proposed. Number 5. Under very specific circumstances, it's actually possible to encounter 2 Mr. X's in the RPD. This discovery first came from YouTuber Beast Gaming HD, who was attempting a speed run when he somehow managed to trigger 2 Mr. X's. The explanation is that the game uses 2 different versions of Mr. X. One is the persistent stalker that roams the station, the other is scripted to appear only during certain story moments, like when the helicopter is extinguished in Leon's scenario, or when leaving the Star's office in Claire's route. So while it's rare, yes, you can actually run into 2 Mr. X's at the same time. Number 6. One of the most unsettling enemies ever planned for Resident Evil 2 Remake never made it beyond the concept stage. Known only as the Condemned, this creature was designed as a humanoid monstrosity with twisted proportions and a grotesque half-human silhouette. In an interview with the designers, they revealed that a temporary 3D model and basic animations for the creature had been created. This enemy was originally meant to appear in the orphanage, and its presence would have added an entirely new layer of horror to Sherry's storyline. It was pitched as the main threat for Sherry, but producer Jun Takeuchi suggested a different approach. Instead of introducing a new creature, the tension should come from Chief Irons himself. That change grounded the orphanage section in human horror rather than another monster encounter, and as a result, the Condemned was abandoned. Number 7. While playing as Sherry in the orphanage, you'll find a drawing of a teddy bear, and if you look closely, you'll realize it's the same exact creepy bear that Natalia carried in Resident Evil Revelations 2. Number 8. One of the most heartbreaking moments in the remake is Marvin's slow transformation, but in early builds, this scene played out differently. At one point, Marvin was scripted to aim his gun directly at Leon, as if struggling against the infection while trying to hold on to his humanity. In the next instant, a zombie would lunge at him, cutting the moment short. This sequence was reworked for the final release, but it highlights Capcom's attempt to make Marvin's fate even more tragic. Number 9. The developers of the remake paid meticulous attention to detail, and it shows. For example, if Leon is holding his flashlight while chambering his weapon, he'll briefly press the flashlight against his neck to steady it. It's a great touch that showcases Capcom's commitment to realism. Number 10. Players who explored the one-shot demo of this game were treated to a chilling surprise. If you ventured near the RPD entrance, you could faintly hear Nemesis growling stars in the distance. It was a clever tease from Capcom that ultimately foreshadowed his full return in the Resident Evil 3 remake. Number 11. Early in development, William Birkin was originally planned to attack the player directly in the sewers. This would have given players an additional high-pressure encounter with the creature in a much tighter environment. While the idea was ultimately scrapped, fans uncovered remnants of this build, including animations and placement data, proving that at one stage, the sewers were going to be even deadlier than what made it into the final release. Number 12. One of the most haunting details hidden in the game can be found during William Birkin's final transformation on the train. Even after the G-Virus has twisted his body into something unrecognizable, remnants of the man he once was still remain. If you take the camera out of bounds outside the train, you will find Birkin's human face embedded within the grotesque mass of muscle and teeth. Number 13. Mr. X's trench coat wasn't actually designed from scratch. Instead, it's taken directly from the scrap Resident Evil 1.5 project. In this prototype, the early Tyrant design already wore long concealing coats, and it's really cool to see them bring this back into the remake. Number 14. The infamous giant alligator almost didn't make it into the remake. Early in development, Capcom debated cutting the sequence entirely, believing it would be too difficult to render convincingly with modern graphics. At one point, it was even designed as a multi-stage boss fight with several arenas, but in the end, the team scaled it back to a cinematic set piece, balancing fan expectations with the development limitations. Though brief, the encounter remains as one of the most memorable moments in the game. Number 15. This game holds many reused assets from previous Resident Evil games. Among these include the mannequins from Resident Evil 7, Jack's note, as well as decorative vases. But perhaps the strangest is an in-game magazine that actually references the events of Resident Evil 2 itself. How such a magazine could exist during the chaos still remains a mystery. Number 16. One of the more playful Easter eggs comes from a simple locker combination as DCM. This code is a direct reference to Capcom's other iconic franchise, Devil May Cry. Both Resident Evil and Devil May Cry share developmental DNA. The latter even began as an early prototype for Resident Evil 4, so slipping in this locker code was a subtle nod to their shared history. Number 17. Another terrifying scrapped enemy design comes from a creature known only as the wheelchair zombie. The illustration is unsettling. The swollen, tumor-ridden body slumped into a motorized wheelchair still clutches what looks like a television remote, and across its lap drapes a tattered lab coat. Details like these suggest that this enemy may have once been a researcher within the Nest Laboratories, a victim of the very virus he helped study. Unlike the more mobile infected, this figure is trapped in place, his decaying body fused with a chair that was once meant to give him freedom of movement. Although it never made it beyond the concept stage, this monster stands as one of the remake's most haunting cut ideas. Number 18. If you explore the RPD office closely, you'll spot the nameplate of Rita Phillips. This is actually a direct reference to the Raccoon City police officer who appears in Resident Evil Outbreak File 2. It's a small nod, but one that further weaves the spin-offs into the core series lore. Number 17. At the start of the game, we see an officer in the gas station get ripped apart by a zombie, and if you try to return to the room later, you can find his zombified form blocking the way. But by breaking the game's boundaries, players discover that this cop can actually not be killed. His HP is locked, and he has no hit animations. Number 20. One of Leon's extra unlockable costumes is a clear nod to The Walking Dead, specifically Rick Grimes' sheriff uniform from the first seasons of the show. His noir outfit, on the other hand, is a tribute to Sebastian from The Evil Within, a survival horror game directed by Shinji Mikami himself. Number 21. If you look closely at Mr. X's model, you can find a small Umbrella transmitter implanted in his head. This small piece of hardware allowed Umbrella to track his movements and collect data on his performance. This makes the creature's relentlessness even more chilling, as every step he takes is part of an experiment. Number 22. In early builds of the remake, the inventory menu looked much closer to the classic style from the original games. It had the simple box-like presentation that fans of the PlayStation era would recognize instantly. But as development progressed, Capcom shifted to a sleeker, modern interface to improve accessibility. Number 23. Another major idea scrapped during development was the return of fixed camera angles. For some time, Capcom considered staying closer to the original Resident Evil 2 by anchoring the camera in static positions around rooms. While nostalgic, the developers eventually decided against it, realizing it limited the modern action survival blend they wanted. Still, the fact that it was considered shows how much the team wrestled with honoring the original while creating something fresh. Number 24. In the RPD office on one of the lockers, you can find the name JoJo. This is actually a callback to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the long-running manga series. The original Resident Evil 2 was one of the earliest titles to include the JoJo reference, and for longtime fans, seeing it reappear in the remake was a subtle way to tie the games together. Number 25. Another terrifying enemy concept removed during development was the Licker Zombie. This grotesque creation was imagined as a midway stage of mutation between the common zombie and the fully realized Licker. It features torn flesh giving way to exposed muscle and brain, distorted faces with gaping maws, and long serpentine tongues ready to lash out. In some variations, the designs lean closer to a human form, while others pushed into an insectoid alien territory. Click this video here to uncover some secrets you missed in Resident Evil 3 Remake. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.